Well, maybe 60, 80. 80 people. Greeks, Germans, Italians, French, Americans. Tourists from everywhere. Eating, drinking, talking, laughing. And from Bombay, Indians and Iranians and Afghans and Arabs and Africans. But how many of these people have real power, real destiny, real dynamic for their place, and their time, and the lives of thousands of people? I will tell you, 4. 4 people in this room with power, and the rest are like the rest of the people everywhere. Powerless, sleepers in the dream, anonym. When Carla comes back, there will be 5 people in this room with power. That is Carla, the one you call interesting. I see by your expression, my young friend, you do not understand what I am saying. Let me put it this way. Carla is reasonably good at being a friend, but she is stupendously good at being an enemy. When you judge the power that is in a person, you must judge their capacities as both friend and as enemy. And there is no one in this city that makes a worse or more dangerous enemy than Carla. He stared into my eyes, looking for something, moving from one eye to the other and back again. You know the kind of power I'm talking about, don't you? Real power. The power to make men shine like the stars, or crush them to dust. The power of secrets. Terrible, terrible secrets. The power to live without remorse or regret. Is there something in your life, Lynn, that you regret? Is there anything you have done, that you regret it? Yes, I guess I. Of course you do, and so do I, regret, things I have done, and not done. But not Carla, and that is why she is like the others, the few others in this room, who have real power. She has a heart like theirs, and you and I do not. Ah, forgive me, I am almost drunk, and I see that my Italians are leaving. Ajay will not wait for much longer. I must go, now, and collect my little commission, before I can allow myself to be completely drunk. He sat back in his chair, and then pushed himself to his feet by leaning heavily on the table with both of his soft, white hands. Without another word or look he left, and I watched him walk toward the kitchen, threading his way through the tables with the rolling, spongy step of the practiced drinker. His sports coat was creased and wrinkled at the back, where he'd been leaning against the chair, and the seat of his trousers hung in baggy folds. Before I knew him well enough, before I realized how much it meant that he'd lived by crime and passion for 8 years in Bombay without making a single enemy and without borrowing a single dollar, I tended to dismiss Didier as little more than an amusing but hopeless drunkard. It was an easy mistake to make, and one that he himself encouraged. The first rule of black business everywhere is, never let anyone know what you're thinking. Didier's corollary to the rule was, always know what the other thinks of you. The shabby clothes, the matted, curly hair, pressed flat in places where it had rested on the pillow the night before, even his fondness for alcohol, exaggerated into what seemed to be a debilitating addiction. They were all expressions of an image he cultivated, and were as carefully nuanced as a professional actor's. He made people think that he was harmless and helpless, because that was the precise opposite of the truth. I had little time to think about Didier and the puzzling remarks he'd made, however, because Carla soon returned, and we left the restaurant almost at once. We took the long way to her small house, walking beside the seawall that runs from the Gateway of India to the Radio Club Hotel. The long, wide street was empty. On our right, behind a row of plane trees, were hotels and apartment buildings. A few lights, here and there, showed window graphs of the lives being lived in those rooms. A sculpture displayed on one wall, a shelf of books on another, a poster of some Indian deity, framed in wood, surrounded by flowers and smoky streamers of incense and, just visible in the corner of a street-level window, 2 slender hands pressed together in prayer. On our left was a vast segment of the world's largest harbor, the dark water starred by the moorage lights of 100 ships at anchor. Beyond them, the horizon quivered with fires flung from the towers of offshore refineries. There was no moon. It was nearly midnight, but the air was still as warm as it had been in the early afternoon. High tide on the Arabian Sea brought occasional sprays over the waist-high stone wall. Mists that swirled, on the Simoom, all the way from the coast of Africa. We walked slowly. I looked up often at the sky, so heavy with stars that the black net of night was bulging, overflowing with its glittering hull. Imprisonment meant years without a sunrise, a sunset, or a night sky, locked in a cell for 16 hours each day, from early afternoon to late morning. Imprisonment meant that they took away the sun and the moon and the stars. Prison wasn't hell, but there was no heaven in it, either. In its own way, that was just as bad. You can take this good listener business a little too far, you know. What? Oh, sorry, I was thinking. I apologized and shook myself into the moment. Hey, before I forget, here's that money Illa gave me. She accepted the roll of notes from me and shoved it into her handbag without looking at it. It's strange, you know. Ulla went with Modena to break away from someone else who was controlling her like a slave. Now she's Modena's slave, in a way. But she loves him, and that makes her ashamed that she has to lie to him, to keep a little money for herself. Some people need the master-slave thing. Not just some people, she responded, with sudden and disconcerting bitterness. When you were talking to Didier about freedom, when he asked you the freedom to do what? You said, the freedom to say no. It's funny, but I was thinking it's more important to have the freedom to say yes. Speaking of Didier, I said lightly, trying to change the subject and lift her spirits, I had a long talk with him tonight, while I was waiting for you. I think Didier would have done most of the talking, she guessed. Well, yes, he did, but it was interesting. I enjoyed it. It's the first time we've ever talked like that. What did he tell you? Tell me? The phrase struck me as peculiar. It carried the hint that there were things he shouldn't tell. He was giving me some background on some of the people at Leopold's. The Afghans and the Iranians, and the Shivsonics, or whatever they're called, and the local mafia dons. She gave a wry little smile. I wouldn't take too much notice of what Didier says. He can be very superficial, especially when he's being serious. He's the kind of guy who gets right down to the skin of things, if you know what I mean. I told him once he's so shallow that the best he can manage is a single entendre. The funny thing is, he liked it. I'll say this for Didier, you can't insult him. I thought you two were friends, I remarked, deciding not to repeat what Didier had said about her. Friends? Well, sometimes I'm not really sure what friendship is. We've known each other for years. We used to live together once, did he tell you? No, he didn't. Yeah, for a year, when I first came to Bombay. We shared a crazy, fractured little apartment in the fort area. The building was crumbling around us. Every morning we used to wake with plaster on our faces from the pregnant ceiling, and there were always new chunks of stone and wood and other stuff in the hallway. The whole building collapsed in the monsoon a couple of years ago, and a few people were killed. I walk that way sometimes, and look up at the hole in the sky where my bedroom used to be. I suppose you could say that we're close, Didier and I, but friends? Friendship is something that gets harder to understand every damn year of my life. Friendship is like a kind of algebra test that nobody passes. In my worst moods, I think the best you can say is that a friend is anyone you don't despise. Her tone was serious, but I allowed myself a gentle laugh. That's a bit strong, I think. She looked at me, frowning hard, but then she, too, laughed. Maybe it is. I'm tired. I haven't had enough sleep for the last few nights. I don't mean to be hard on Didier. It's just that he can be very annoying sometimes, you know. Did he say anything about me? He said that he thinks you're beautiful. He said that? Yes. He was talking about beauty in white people and black people, and he said Carla is beautiful. She raised her eyebrows, in mild and pleased surprise. Well, I'll take that as a significant compliment, even if he is an outrageous liar. I like Didier. Why? She asked quickly. Oh, I don't know. It's his professionalism, I think. I like people who are expert at what they do. And there's a sadness in him that kind of makes sense to me. He reminds me of a few guys I know. Friends. At least he makes no secret of his decadence, she declared, and I was suddenly reminded of something Didier had told me about Carla and the power of secrets. Perhaps that's what we really have in common, Didier and I. We both hate hypocrites. Hypocrisy is just another kind of cruelty. And Didier's not cruel. He's wild, but he's not cruel. He's been quiet in the last while, but there were times when his passionate affairs were the scandal of the city, or at least of the foreigners who live here. A jealous lover, a young Moroccan boy, chased him down the causeway with a sword one night. They were both stark naked. Quite a shocking event in Bombay, and in the case of Didier, something of a spectacle, I can report. He ran into the Colaba police station, and they rescued him. They are very conservative about such things in India, but Didier has one rule. He never has any sex involvement with Indians, and I think they respect that. A lot of foreigners come here just for the sex with very young Indian boys. Didier despises them, and he restricts himself to affairs with foreigners. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he told you so much of other people's business tonight. He was trying to seduce you, perhaps, by impressing you with his knowledge of dark business and dark people. Oh, hello, Cat Sally. Hey, where did you come from? We'd come upon a cat that was squatting on the seawall to eat from a parcel someone had discarded there. The thin, gray animal hunkered down and scowled, growling and whining at the same time, but it allowed Carla to stroke its back as it lowered its head to the food once more. It was a wizened and scabrous specimen with one ear chewed to the shape of a rosebud, and bare patches on its sides and back where unhealed sores were exposed. I found it amazing that such a feral, emaciated creature should permit itself to be petted by a stranger, and that Carla would want to do such a thing. Even more astounding, it seemed to me then, was that the cat had such a keen appetite for vegetables and rice, cooked in a sauce of whole, very hot chilies. Oh, look at him, she cooed. Isn't he beautiful? Well, don't you admire his courage, his determination to survive? I'm afraid I don't like cats very much. I don't mind dogs, but cats. But you must love cats. In a perfect world, all the people would be like cats are, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I laughed. Did anyone ever tell you you've got a very peculiar way of putting things? What do you mean? She asked, turning to me quickly. Even in the streetlight I could see that her face was flushed, almost angry. I didn't know then that the English language was a gentle obsession with her, that she studied and wrote and worked hard to compose those clever fragments of her conversation. Just that you have a unique way of expressing yourself. Don't get me wrong, I like it. I like it very much. It's like, well, take yesterday, for instance, when we were all talking about truth. Capital T truth, absolute truth, ultimate truth. And is there any truth? Is anything true? Everybody had something to say about it. Didier, Ulla, Maurizio, even Modena. Then you said, the truth is a bully we all pretend to like. I was knocked out by it. Did you read that in a book, or hear it in a play, or a movie? No, I made it up myself. Well, that's what I mean. I don't think I could repeat anything that the others said, and be sure of getting it exactly right. But that line of yours, I'll never forget it. Do you agree with it? What? That the truth is a bully we all pretend to like. Yes. No, I don't, not at all. But I love the idea and the way you put it. Her half-smile held my stare. We were silent for a few moments, and just as she began to look away I spoke again to hold her attention. Why do you like Biarritz? What? The other day, the day before yesterday, you said that Biarritz is one of your favorite places. I've never been there, so I don't know, one way or the other. But I'd like to know why you like it so much. She smiled, wrinkling her nose in a quizzical expression that might have been scornful or pleased. You remember that? Then, I guess I better tell you. Biarritz, how to explain it? I think it's the ocean. The Atlantic. I love Biarritz in the wintertime, when the tourists are gone, and the sea is so frightening that it turns people to stone. You see them standing on the deserted beaches, and staring at the sea, statues, scattered along the beach between the cliffs, frozen stiff by the terror they feel when they look at the ocean. It's not like other oceans, not like the warm Pacific or the Indian. The Atlantic there, in winter, is really unforgiving and ruthlessly cruel. You can feel it calling to you. You know it wants to drag you out and pull you under. It's so beautiful, I just burst into tears the first time I really looked at it. And I wanted to go to it. I wanted to let myself go out and under the big, angry waves. It's the scariest thing. But the people in Biarritz, they're the most tolerant and easygoing people in Europe, I think. Nothing freaks them out. Nothing is too over the top. It's kind of weird. In most holiday places, the people are angry and the sea is calm. In Biarritz, it's the other way around. Do you think you'll go back there one day, to stay, I mean? No, she said quickly. If I ever leave here, for good, it'll mean going back to the States. I grew up there, after my parents died. And I'd like to go back, someday. I think I love it there, most of all. There's something so confident and open-hearted and brave about America and the American people. I don't feel American, at least, I don't think I do. but I'm comfortable with them, if you know what I mean, more than I am with any other people, anywhere. Tell me about the others, I asked, wanting to keep her talking. The others? She asked, frowning suddenly. The crew at Leopold's. Didier and the others. Tell me about Letitia, to start with. How do you know her? She relaxed, and let her eyes roam the shadows on the far side of the street. Still thinking, still considering, she lifted her gaze to the night sky. The blue-white light from a street lamp melted to liquid on her lips and in the spheres of her large eyes. Letty lived in Goa for a while, she began, affection playing in her voice. She came to India for the usual mix, parties and spiritual highs. She found the parties, and she enjoyed them, I think. Letty loves a party, but she never had much luck with the spiritual side of things. She went back to London, twice in the same year, but then she came back to India for one last try at the soul thing. She's on a soul mission. She talks tough, but she's a very spiritual girl. I think she's the most spiritual of all of us, really. How does she live? I don't mean to pry, it's what I was saying before. I just want to learn how people make a living here. How foreigners get by, I mean. She's an expert with gems, gemstones and jewels. She works on a commission basis for some of the foreign buyers. It was Didier who got her the job. He has contacts everywhere in Bombay. Didier? I smiled, genuinely surprised. I thought that they hated each other. Well, not hate exactly. I thought they couldn't stand each other. Oh, they annoy one another, sure. But there's a real friendship there. If anything bad happened to one of them, the other would be devastated. How about Maurizio? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. The tall Italian was too handsome, too confident, and I envied him for what I saw as his deeper knowledge of Carla and his friendship with her. What's his story? His story? I don't know what his story is, she replied, frowning again. His parents died, leaving him a lot of money. He spent it, and I think he developed something of a talent for spending money. Other people's money? I asked. I might have seemed too eager for that to be true, because she answered me with a question. Do you know the story of the scorpion and the frog? You know, the frog agrees to carry the scorpion across the river, because the scorpion promises not to sting him? Yeah, and then the scorpion stings the frog, halfway across the river. The drowning frog asks him why he did it, when they'll both drown, and the scorpion says that he's a scorpion, and it's his nature to sting. Yes, she sighed, nodding slowly until the frown left her brow. That's Maurizio. And if you know that, he's not a problem, because you just don't offer to carry him across the river. Do you know what I mean? I'd been in prison. I knew exactly what she meant. I nodded, and asked her about Ulla and Modena. I like Ulla, she answered quickly, turning that half-smile on me again. She's crazy and unreliable, but I have a feeling for her. She was a rich girl, in Germany, and she played with heroin until she got a habit. Her family cut her off, so she came to India. She was with a bad guy, a German guy, a junkie like her, who put her to work in a very tough place. A horrible place. She loved the guy. She did it for him. She would have done anything for him. Some women are like that. Some loves are like that. Most loves are like that, from what I can see. Your heart starts to feel like an overcrowded lifeboat. You throw your pride out to keep it afloat, and your self-respect and your independence. After a while you start throwing people out, your friends, everyone you used to know. And it's still not enough. The lifeboat is still sinking, and you know it's going to take you down with it. I've seen that happen to a lot of girls here. I think that's why I'm sick of love. I couldn't tell if she was talking about herself, or pointing the words at me. Either way, they were sharp, and I didn't want to hear them. And how about Kavita? Where does she fit in? Kavita's great. She's a freelancer, you know that, a freelance writer. She wants to be a journalist, and I think she'll get there. I hope she gets there. She's bright and honest and gutsy. She's beautiful, too. Don't you think she's a gorgeous girl? Sure, I agreed, recalling the honey-colored eyes, the full and shapely lips, and the long, expressive fingers. She's a pretty girl. But they're all good-looking people, I think. Even Didier, in his crumpled-up way, has got a touch of the Lord Byron about him. Letty's a lovely girl. Her eyes are always laughing. They're a real ice blue, her eyes, aren't they? Ulla looks like a doll, with those big eyes and big lips on such a round face. But it's a pretty doll's face. Maurizio's handsome, like a magazine model, and Modana's handsome in a different way, like a bullfighter or something. And you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen with my own eyes. There, I'd said it. And even in the shock of speaking the thought out loud, I wondered if she'd understood, if she'd pierced my words about their beauty, and hers, to find the misery that inspired them. The misery that an ugly man feels in every conscious minute of love. She laughed, a good, deep, wide-mouthed laugh, and seized my arm impulsively, pulling me along the footpath. Just then, as if drawn from the shadows by her laughter, there was a clattering rattle of noise as a beggar, riding on a small wooden platform with metal ball-bearing wheels, rolled off the footpath on the opposite side of the street. He pushed himself forward with his hands until he reached the center of the deserted road, wheeling to a stop with a dramatic pirouette. His piteously thin mantis legs were folded and tucked beneath him on the platform, which was a piece of wood no bigger than a folded newspaper. He wore a boy's school uniform of khaki shorts and a powder blue shirt. Although he was a man in his 20s, the clothes were too big for him. Carla called out, greeting him by name, and we stopped opposite him. They spoke for some time in Hindi. I stared across the 10 meters that separated us, fascinated by the man's hands. They were huge hands, as wide across the back, from knuckle to knuckle, as his face. In the streetlight I could see that they were thickly padded on the fingers and palms like the paws of a bear. "Good night," he called out in English, after a minute. He lifted one hand, first to his forehead and then to his heart, in a delicate gesture of consummate gallantry. With another swift, show-off's pirouette, he propelled himself forward along the road, gaining speed as he rolled down the gentle slope to the Gateway Monument. We watched him out of sight, and then Carla pulled at my arm, leading me along the path once more. I allowed myself to be led. I allowed myself to be drawn by the soft pleading of the waves, and the roulade of her voice, by the black sky, and the darker night of her hair, by the sea tree stone smell of the sleeping street, and the perfume sublime on her warm skin. I allowed myself to be drawn into her life, and the life of the city. I walked her home. I said good night, and I was singing quietly to myself as I went back along the silent brood of streets to my hotel. Chapter 3. What you're saying is that we're finally going to get down to the real deal. Real will be full, Baba, Prabaker assured me, and deal will be plenty also. Now you will see it, the really city. Usually, I am never taking the tourists to these places. They are not liking it, and I am not liking their not liking. Or maybe sometimes they are liking it too much, in these places, and I am liking that even less, isn't it? You must have it a good heads, to like these things, and you must be having a good hearts, to not like them too much. Like you, Linbaba, you are my good friend. I knew it very well, on that first day, when we were drinking the whiskey, in your room. Now my Bombay, with your good heads and your good hearts, you will see it all. We were riding in a taxi along Mahatma Gandhi Road past Flora Fountain and towards Victoria Station. It was an hour before noon, and the swash of traffic that coursed through that stone canyon was swollen by large numbers of runners pushing tiffin carts. The runners collected lunches from homes and apartments, and placed them in tin cylinders called jalpans, or tiffins. They pushed huge trays of the tiffins on long wooden carts, 6 men and more to a cart. Through the heavy metal traffic of buses, trucks, scooters, and cars, they made deliveries at offices and businesses all over the city. None but the men and women who operated the service knew exactly how it was done, how barely literate men evolved the bafflingly complex system of symbols, colors, and key numbers to mark and identify the cylinders. How, day after day, hundreds of thousands of those identical containers swept through the city on their wooden axles, oiled with sweat, and reached the right man or woman, among millions, every time, and how all that was achieved at a cost measured in cents rather than dollars. Magic, the trick that connects the ordinary to the impossible, was the invisible river that ran through every street and beating heart in Bombay in those years, and nothing, from the postal service to the pleading of beggars, worked without a measure of it. What number that bus, Linbaba? Quickly, tell it. Just a second. I hesitated, peering out of the half-open window of the taxi and trying to read the curlicue numbers on the front of a red, double-decker bus that had stopped opposite us momentarily. It's a 104, isn't it? Very, very fine. You have learned your Hindi numbers so nicely. Now no problem for you. reading numbers for bus and train and menu card and drugs purchase and other good things. Now tell me, what is aloo palak? Aloo palak is potato and spinach. Good. And nice eating also, you have not mentioned. I love to eat it, aloo palak. What is phool gobi and bindi? That's, oh yeah, cauliflower and okra. Correct. And also good eating, again you are not mentioned. What is bangan masala? That's, spiced eggplant. Again right. What is it, you're not enjoying eating bangan? Yes, all right. Bangan is good eating, too. I don't like it bangan so much, he sneered, wrinkling up his short nose. Tell me, what am I calling chera, mun, and dill? Okay. Don't tell me, face, mouth, and heart. Is that right? Very right, no problem. I have been watching it, how nicely you eat up your foods with the hand, like a good Indian style. And how you learn to ask for the things. How much this? How much that? Give me 2 cups of tea. I want more hashish. Speaking only Hindi to the people. I have seen this all. You are my best student, Linbaba. And I am your best teacher also, isn't it? It is, Prabhu, I laughed. Hey, watch out. My shout alerted the taxi driver, who swerved just in time to avoid an ox cart that was attempting to make a turn in front of us. The taxi driver, a burly, dark-skinned man with a bristling mustache, seemed to be outraged at my impertinence in saving our lives. When we first took the taxi, he'd adjusted his mirror until he saw nothing in it but my face. After the near miss, he glared at me, snarling a growl of insults in Hindi. He drove the cab like a getaway car, slewing left and right to overtake slower vehicles. There was an angry, bullying pugnacity in his attitude to everyone else on the road. He rushed to within centimeters of every slower car in his path, sounding his horn, then all but nudging it out of the way. If the slower car moved a little to the left, in order to let him pass, our driver drew beside it, pacing it for a time and shouting insults. When he spied another slow vehicle ahead, he sped forward to repeat the procedure. From time to time he opened his door and leaned out over the road to spit pon juice, taking his eyes off the traffic ahead for long seconds as we hurtled along in the rattling cab. This guy's a nutcase. I muttered to Prabhakar. Driving is not so good, Prabhakar replied, bracing himself with both arms against the back of the driver's seat. But I have to say, the spitting and insulting is a first-class job. For Christ's sake, tell him to stop. I shouted as the cab accelerated into a squall of traffic, lurching in the swerve left and right. He's going to kill us. Band Karo. Prabhakar shouted. Stop. He added a pithy curse, for good measure, but the driver only became more enraged. With the car hurtling along at top speed, he turned his head to snarl at us. His mouth was wide open, and his teeth were bared. His eyes were huge, their blackness streaked with rage. Array! Prabhakar shrieked, pointing past the driver. It was too late. The man turned quickly. His arms stiffened at the wheel, and he hit the brakes hard. There was a skating, sliding second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I heard a guttural gasp of air from deep in his throat. It was a sucking sound, like the lifting of a flat stone from the moist clay on the edge of a riverbed. Then there was the whump and crash as we slammed into a car that had stopped in front of us to make a turn. We were thrown forward into the back of his seat, and heard 2 thumping explosions as 2 other cars rammed into us. Shattered glass and chrome fragments rattled on the road like thin metallic applause in the sudden silence that followed the impacts. My head had hit the door in the tumble spill of the accident. I felt blood flowing from a cut above my eye, but I was otherwise unhurt. As I wriggled myself up from the floor, and onto the back seat once more, I felt Prabhakar's hands on me. Nothing broken you are, Lynn? You are okay? I'm okay. You are sure? Everything not broken? Jesus, Prabhu, I don't care how good this guy's spitting is, I said, laughing nervously, and ragged with relief, he doesn't get a tip. Are you all right? We must get out, Lynn, he answered, his voice rising to a hysterical whine. Out of here, now. The door on his side was jammed shut, and he began to push at it with his shoulder. He couldn't budge it. He reached across me to try the door on my side, but saw at once that another car was jammed against it, pinning it shut. Our eyes met, and there was such fear in him, such terror in the white-rimmed bulge of his eyes, that I felt the coldness of it deep in my chest. He turned at once, and threw himself again at the door on his side. My mind was muddy water, and one idea splashed up from it, clear and exclusive. Fire. Is that what he's afraid of? Once I'd asked myself the question, I couldn't stop thinking it. I looked at the terror that pulled at Prabaker's gasping mouth, and I was sure the taxi was going to catch fire. I knew we were trapped there. The rear windows, in all the Bombay taxis I'd seen, didn't open beyond a few centimeters. The doors were jammed, and the windows wouldn't open, and the taxi was going to explode in fire, and we were trapped. Burned alive. Is that why he's so scared? I looked to the driver. He was slumped, awkwardly, between the steering wheel and the door. His body was still, but I heard him moaning. Beneath the thin shirt, the abacus ridge of his spine rose and fell with each slow and shallow breath. Faces appeared at the windows of the cab, and I heard excited voices. Prabaker looked out at them, turning this way and that, his face cramped in